Hi there, it's Lisa Carr with Insight to Potential, and I'm back for day 4 of our 5-day challenge on our parent leadership tribe. And so empowering parents to become parent leaders in the lives of their child. And so today in day 4, what I bring to you are the signs and symptoms of children who are absolutely struggling with school. And so in the last 3 days of our challenge, we've talked about things like having an excellent rapport with your child's school, knowing who all the key players are, having an excellent rapport with your classroom teacher, your child's classroom teacher, keeping the lines of communication open, being positive, non-judgmental, and trying to communicate with your child as early and as often as humanly possible about their schooling experience and how to track and monitor their progress at school to be on alert if things are starting to kind of fall off the tracks. And so really it's important that you continue to do those things now more than ever, because it brings us into this area of really trying to head off things like a child developing poor self-esteem, increasing a child's risk for dropping out of school later on in their high school years, really wanting to steer them clear of falling into the wrong group or participating in activities that are high-risk activities for things such as smoking and alcohol abuse and drug abuse and so on later on. And we also set them up for risk if we're not intervening or if we're not paying attention. We're setting them up for risk for having some pretty negative labels attached to them that aren't necessarily true. Your child being lazy, or your child is unmotivated, or your child just doesn't care, or your child just doesn't try hard enough. And so those kinds of labels can be quite damaging to your child and your child's self-esteem. And as I said, it has a number of consequences that come along with it. And then I think one of the gravest consequences is that when a child is being labeled with things such as lazy and dumb and unmotivated and doesn't care and all of those sorts of things, it really it starts to depress their self-esteem, and in the same turn, it makes them feel separate and disconnected from their school and from the school environment. And when a child doesn't feel like they have anywhere to go where they fit in, that's where you really start to see some problems. And so, there's a number of causes or reasons why children come to school with difficulties, and a lot of it has nothing to do, or most of it has nothing to do with the child being lazy and unmotivated and all of those other kinds of unhelpful labels that sometimes adults give to children. Sometimes children come to school with learning difficulties, or they're having behavioral or emotional struggles. And some of those learning disabilities, behavioral struggles, emotional struggles are born of different personal factors that a child may experience early on in their life, such as having gone through a critical illness, childhood cancer, for example, or a chronic illness, which has left them out of school for a great period of time, leaving it very difficult for them to be able to catch up. Some children are predisposed to things such as depression and anxiety. They may have been a witness to or part of a very serious traumatic experience, and therefore it impacts on their ability to attend, to learn, to have positive attitude, to have positive self-esteem, to have regulation over emotional and behavioral type skills that are appropriate for them at that particular age level. They may just naturally have poor communication skills, lack the social or emotional training or skills that they need in order to interact with peers, so it's difficult for them. And they may also struggle with listening, attending and also communicating and concentration in school. And so all of those factors really put a child at a disadvantage. And it's not that they're lazy or willfully trying to be disrespectful in the school environment. It's something that has happened to them in their earlier stages of development that have set up some roadblocks really that need to be taken down for them, and they need some external assistance with that. Now, there are some school factors as well, outside of personal factors, that can really contribute to a child's disconnect or ability to achieve in school. And so there could just be a disconnect from the school environment in its entirety. And what I mean by that is maybe they just don't like the schooling subjects. Maybe academia is not in their repertoire of gifts and talents. It may be that their greatest achievements happen on the ice rink, or it happens in a gymnasium, or it may be on a theater stage. And so the school environment, they're feeling disconnected from it, where they don't belong, because those kinds of activities aren't necessarily front and center in what they do for the vast majority of their day. It could also be that they have heavy workloads with a real lack of support. They may have struggles maybe later on, skipping school, missing school, frequent absences, some of which may or may not be within their control. I know in my own personal experience, it wasn't actually the child that was missing school because of something that was inherent to them. They were missing school because mom was very sick, and they felt obligated to stay home and to take care of mom. And so therefore they missed a lot of school, and it made it very difficult for them to keep up. And therefore it put them at a disadvantage in terms of academic achievement at school. And then, of course, we know about the topics of bullying and harassment and the damaging effects that can have on your child in terms of their ability to concentrate, in terms of their ability to have a social network at school to rely on, and feeling comfortable to be able to learn in a safe environment. And so with all of those factors, you've got the what they're actually born with, which could be a learning disability. It could be a cognitive delay. It could be a speech and language issue. It could be hearing issues. It could be a whole host of things. You've got personal factors, and then you've also got school environment factors that make it difficult for them to learn. And so watching for those early signs and symptoms of them pulling away from school, not wanting to talk about school, not wanting to be engaged, having frequent headaches, belly aches, those somatic type issues that creep up where they don't want to go to school, sadness, change in behavior, not engaging with friends or going to birthday parties or being included in different activities that are happening. All of that really you need to pay attention to and intervene as early and as often as necessary to get the support that is needed for your child. And so what I want to bring to you today is some strategies that can help you connect with the school so that you can get the support that you need. And so we've talked about this in the other 3 videos, but again, I can't stress enough to you, making sure that you are connected with the school, knowing who your school support staff is, knowing who the main players are, asking questions, communicating with the teacher, reading all of your school bulletins, reading all of your teacher dialogue, and communicating with the teacher frequently, often, as much as you need in order to stay on top of things. And you really want to monitor the progress. So anything that you put in place, whether it's suggestions that you're bringing to the table or recommendations that the teacher is bringing to you, you don't want to just go to a meeting, have a phone call, communicate through writing, whatever which way it's going to be, and make a recommendation, agree to it, and then nothing. You always, always, always want to follow up, and a hard follow up, meaning that you want to set a date and time when you're going to meet. You want to have an indicator of success that you can actually measure, so that when you come back to the table, you have evidence in front of you, either that it's working, worked, didn't work, worked a little bit, and then what are the next steps? Where are we going to go from here and continue the dialogue? You really want to ask for recommendations so that you can support the school at home, as well as offer your suggestions and recommendations so that the school can mimic any kind of strategies that you have in place for your child that seems to work for you at home. The teachers will definitely want to have that as well. Now, if you're really struggling in terms of accepting, acknowledging, recognizing, or reconciling what the teacher is seeing by way of what you see your child like at home. Sometimes that happens where the teacher says, this is what I'm observing of your child at school in the learning environment, in terms of how they interact with other children, in terms of how they interact with adults. And then you have a completely other image of your child, whereby both of those scenarios don't match. Instead of getting into a conflict whereby you're kind of leaving your child in the middle and putting your child at odds with the school and then what you feel like at home with mom and dad, what you may want to ask for at that point in time is a third-party observer. And as much as parents would love to go in and say, let me go in and observe what's happening in the classroom firsthand, and I'll be able to tell you what's happening, or, the principal will go in and observe. You really don't want to do that. You really want to have a third-party observer. And so you may want to request somebody like a speech and language pathologist, a behavioral specialist. It may be somebody like a special education coordinator. It may be a special education teacher, someone who's not necessarily in the know or has daily interactions about your child, because you want them to come in with a non-biased view of who your child is, to go in and do a series of observations. And it can be done on a scheduled basis over the course of a couple of weeks, where they're seeing your child in the morning. They're seeing your child outside at recess, outside at lunch. They're seeing your child during a gym class. They're seeing your child during an art class, during a math class, in the afternoon, how they are when they're getting ready during periods of transition. And then having a subsequent meeting, bringing back all of that information to the table and trying to piece together the puzzle so that you can come to some kind of steps, progressive steps that will be able to help your child. And you want to get that third party so that you have you have a way to kind of balance out the information in a somewhat unbiased way. And sometimes, and I've seen this quite a lot over the many years that I served as an elementary school principal, sometimes it's a matter of really taking time as a parent to come to grips with the reality of who your child is. And I know a lot of times, and I've experienced myself as a mom, that when you have your baby and you get them brand new and you get them in your hands, and even through the whole term of pregnancy, you fantasize about hopes and dreams and the potential of who this child is going to be, and all the things that you're going to make right for them, things that you didn't experience yourself in your own childhood, new learning that you want to give to them. You parents inherently want to provide for them a life that is bigger and better than what they ever had to experience. But sometimes we fail as parents to recognize that when these children come into the world, that they are their own beings, that they are they have their own soul, and they are created in the image and likeness of God, Spirit, being, whoever that is for you. And we superimpose our expectations, our perceptions, our beliefs, our wantings, our longings for them on the child. And it may not represent the reality of who the child really is. And when that's the case, we need to do some work with ourselves as parents to come to recognize the beauty of who the child is in their own right, and to help them to grow and progress to be the very best that they can be in their own, as their own person, to their very best ability. And so, as a starting point in today's topics, those would be my top strategies for you. And certainly you may need to get some help with that in and along the way in order to come to some of those difficult reckonings or awakenings. But the sooner you get to that, the more able you are to be able to see your child in the fullness and wholeness of who they truly are, so that you can give them the very best that you have to give. And so for today, that's what I have to offer to you. And yes, my phone is going off right in the middle of a video, and I'm not sure if you're getting all that noise in the background. Yahoo! Right at the very end. However, we still have one more day to go in the day 5 challenge. And in the day 5 challenge, I want to discuss the final topic, which is actually on children with learning disabilities, and also learning designations of being gifted, and how to navigate the schooling system when your child has verified diagnosed either disabilities, challenges, or learning exceptionalities that will require different programming for them, because they do need some extra supports. And so I want to thank you again for joining me today. There will be some questions posted for you, and again, some awesome prizes for your discussion and participation. And until then, thank you very much for joining me in the 5-day challenge. This is day 4 with Lisa Carr at Insight to Potential, and the founder of the Parent Leaders Tribe. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you for our final day tomorrow. Take care.